I'm Chris Sarra. I'm the Executive Director of the Stronger Smarter Institute. It's based in Queensland, but we work nationally. And the Institute was established essentially to change the tide of low expectations of Indigenous kids in schools and ultimately to build stronger, smarter communities throughout Australia. I guess the Institute was established in a sense, to capitalise on what we learnt when I was principal at Cherbourg School in Queensland, an Aboriginal community school where we got some pretty good success. And I guess the logic at the time was to probably package up what we learnt and find a way to spread that across the country. And I'm happy to say that we've been able to do that in many sorts of ways. So I guess the point is, that stereotype that exists might appear as a truth to a lot of Australian people, but in fact it isn't the reality about who we are as Aboriginal people. And tragically for young Aboriginal kids in schools, part of the fallout reflects on them as well. So in many ways they're kind of seen as the kind of kids who are going to fail at school, the kind of kids who are going to be chronic non-attenders at school, the kind of kids who are going to be disruptive and rebellious and all of those kinds of things. And the problem is if you see kids in that kind of way, then you're inclined to sort of treat them in that sort of a way, and surprise, surprise, they kind of look like that's what they are. So it appears as the truth, but if we can suspend those negative perceptions excuse me, if we can suspend those negative perceptions and make time to really get in and see the truth about who people are in a way that's positive, then we get something positive back. And this is a way we can get to the truth. That's what I mean when I say we can get to the truth about who Aboriginal children are, and indeed who Aboriginal people are, because we know that we're a long way from the stereotype that exists. So if we could get every teacher in the country to see Aboriginal children in schools positively and as students with potential to be a high achiever, then I think things would change quite dramatically. Well, one of the other tragedies, apart from teachers having low expectations and perceiving Aboriginal children down here somehow, one of the greatest tragedies is somehow we as Aboriginal people and Aboriginal kids, young black kids in schools, have tragically gotten to see themselves as that's their place. And it's almost like we've been tricked into being in that place. So I guess in my role as a school leader at Cherbourg, I suppose I had to untrick them, if you like, to say, well, we've got to stop pulling each other down, we've got to stop colluding with a negative stereotypical view of who you are. And you've got to start being the truth about who you are. And the truth is you can be strong and smart. And what I meant by that was, you can be strong in here and proud of where you come from as an Aboriginal student. But we can be smart enough up here to mix it. But anybody who came into the place knew that they had to come into the place with high expectations. And it's those high expectations which furnished the realities of a shift towards a school that was, a little school that started to roar. It's also important, I think, for us as NAB people to just recognise the importance of this strategy of bringing in Indigenous school-based trainees into the mix, because it represents a very important step and a very important kind of effort to reach out to Aboriginal Australia. I would urge all employees to embrace this as a tremendously positive thing and really make it a positive experience. Go out of your way to make it a positive experience for young Indigenous people who might be working alongside you, because the bank is an institution like lots of other institutions, and for some young Indigenous kids it's easier to stay away from those sorts of places. So it doesn't hurt to recognise that some of these guys are taking a step up in some circumstances, not all. Some kids will be stepping out of their comfort zone, and so it's incumbent upon us as NAB people to reach out and embrace them and make them feel special, because they are indeed special. If I'm a young Indigenous employee or trainee at a branch, I think what I would enjoy most is just to be accepted as part of the team. You know, I'd like people to be interested in who I am as an Aboriginal person, but without having to give lectures all day, every day, sort of thing. But I do want people to embrace me positive and be interested in, you know, various aspects of my sense of Aboriginality, and I would be happy to share that. But importantly, you know, I'd want to have some fun at the workplace, because that's how we do it. And alongside that, being treated with respect, and alongside people who value me and what I have to offer, and people who are prepared to give me a go and trust me to you know, give good advice, trust me to be innovative in my own sorts of ways and show some leadership, and trust me to work hard and get the job done. When I think about the range of programs that NAB is engaging in to reach out, to bring people in from the margins, I'm very excited. You know, and I think even for us as an organisation, you know, the people in the big end of town and people in the branches who are all part of the NAB family, I think we should be all pleased to know that as an organisation, we're taking the lead role in the financial sector by reaching out to people on the margins who've been financially excluded for too long, and signalling, look, as an organisation, we're not comfortable with you being on the margins, and we want to bring you in so that you are included financially, because you, regardless of where you come from, you have a human right to be included into financial processes that are empowering. Recently there's been some unsavoury comments, if you like, that have been made by prominent sports people, and they're the kinds of comments that shouldn't really have been said, and I'm sure everybody knows what and who I'm talking about. But you know, in some ways I was pleasantly surprised at the response. You know, clearly the comments that were made in the New South Wales Rugby League camp were just not acceptable, and there are some comments being made out of AFL circles that you wouldn't expect, and again are just not acceptable. But I was in many ways, as I said, pleasantly surprised with the response. What I was expecting was most people to rally around and say, well, look, they're only just words, we should just get over it. When in fact that wasn't the response. The major response was to signal that, look, this is not acceptable in our society, not acceptable in our respective games, and it needs to be purged, and there needs to be consequences, and in fact there were consequences. So to that end I was pretty pleased, and it was just a small sign, or maybe not so small, a marker that we've shifted as a society, when most people are prepared to say, look, we're not going to accept racist comments in our society, so we need to get that out. And I guess if you're a mainstream Australian, whatever that means, if you're sitting there wondering about how you play your part in purging racist commentary from our fabric, that can happen in all sorts of ways. And I think it's really important to remember that, you know, if we're at a party or in the branch staff room or something like that, and somebody makes a racist comment, then we can either say something explicit about that, or we can say nothing. But we must remember that even if we say nothing, we say something. Do you know what I mean? You know that old saying, evil prevails when good people say nothing. So if we're serious about a society, and you know, even if we're serious about the NAB family, if you like, then we need to take each other on about these and just signal that we're not an organisation that accepts racial commentary in our staff rooms or our branches, and if it does surface, then we're prepared to say, hey, this is not the right thing. And if we do that, then we're clearly signalling that we're not prepared to collude with that sort of unfortunate circumstance. as Australians, we've got to understand the importance of reaching out. You know, there's something very special about us as Aboriginal Australians. You know, we are the first, you know, we're related to the first people who touched the land. And we're the only ones in Australia who can say that. And I'm not saying that to alienate white Australians, but I'm saying that to signal that, you know, you can be a part of that. And the way that you can be a part of that is by embracing us as a people. You know, not to feel sorry for us, not to put us on a pedestal, but to walk alongside us. And to walk alongside us with respect and integrity, you've got to know where we're coming from. And so, you know, it's absolutely crucial that we get to know each other better.